Yeah. So lie down onto your mats and just take a moment to arrive. So you can lie however you like, knees bent or legs long. And just let your body settle down onto the ground. And maybe bring your hands onto the front of your body. So you're resting your hands either on your belly or your low ribs, or yeah, wherever feels helpful, comfortable for you. And just give yourself a little bit of time to feel the movement of your breath in your body. So this sense of gathering our awareness inward, just to ourselves, to our bodies, to our breathing, to how we're feeling right now. And maybe then start by letting your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. And you may keep this movement really easy. Yeah, so let the head, yeah, not the knees, the head. Let the head roll to the right and to the left. Sorry, is it a bit noisy?
No, fine.
I'll just get a jumper, I'm cold.
Oh yeah, okay, no, it is a bit, yeah, do make sure you're warm enough. So yes, letting your head roll to the right and to the left. And just noticing how this feels in the neck. How do your shoulders feel? Keeping the movement easy and comfortable. So I think if you're someone who's working from home, it might be you're doing more computer work than usual. It might be there's, you know, a bit more tension around the neck and shoulders. And from letting your head roll from side to side, then settle the center of the back of your head on the floor in a place that feels comfortable. And then if your legs are long, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the ground. And then when you're ready, you're going to start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And see how that feels. So notice as your knees tilt to the right and tilt to the left, you can feel the weight shifting across the back of your pelvis. You can feel the weight shifting across the soles of your feet. And also just notice how this feels around the pelvis, into the hip joints, into the lower back. So we're just starting quite easily, gently, to bring some movement into the body, but without pushing anything. And then settle your legs in the center. Keep your right knee bent and your right foot standing on the floor, and lengthen your left leg out on the ground. So we're going to be, I think most of you know this movement quite well. We're going to be keeping the left leg long and heavy, but it might roll a little bit. You might roll a little bit towards the outer edge of that foot. So as you exhale, you're going to start pressing into your right foot and letting the right side of your pelvis come away from the floor. And then let the pelvis come back down and keep repeating this movement. So as you exhale, pressing into your right foot, let the right side of your pelvis come away from the floor. Let your pelvis tilt to the left, and then let the pelvis come back down to the floor again on the right. So just do that a few more times.
It's quite a small movement, not a huge movement.
It's quite a small movement. Is that you, Kate?
Yes.
Yes, it's quite a small movement. And what you're really trying to isolate is that you're lifting the pelvis by pressing into the right foot. And think about your knee moving forwards over your foot. So that rather than the knee moving to the left, the knee goes forwards over your standing foot. Do that once or twice more on this side, and then you're going to swap sides and do the same thing on the other side. So you're bending your left knee, you're standing your left foot on the floor, you're lengthening your right leg out. And then exactly the same movement on this side. I mean, you don't have to coordinate the movement with the breath, but I quite like to. So that feeling that as you breathe out, you're pressing down into your left foot, you're letting the pelvis lift on the left side and the pelvis tilts over towards the right. And then you stop pressing and you let the pelvis come back down. So what we're really trying to isolate here is that we're pressing into the foot to lift the pelvis. Was someone asking something? Mel, think about sending your knee forwards a bit more rather than it's moving over towards Otter. Yeah, so the knee's going forwards over your foot rather than over to the right. Might be the angle I'm looking at you from. Okay, and then for a moment, just lengthen both legs out on the floor and give your legs a little bit of a roll or bounce your knees. And then you're going to bend both knees and stand both feet on the floor. And in your own time, first of all, just start with a small movement where you're tilting your pelvis a little bit on the floor. So you're tipping your pelvis towards your head and away from your head. So when you tilt your pelvis towards your head, you're flattening out the curve in lower back. And when you tilt your pelvis away from your head, you're arching your lower back a little bit on the floor. And see how that feels.
That's it.
Right there. And then from there, you can, from the movement when you're tilting your bottom of your pelvis off the floor, you can go further and take it into bridge pose and roll up and down maybe 2 or 3 times into quite easy bridge poses. Could be more than 2 or 3 times. So just rolling up and down through your spine a few times. Very nice. And so again, at this point, not pushing anything, thinking still about the knees moving forwards over your feet, and just noticing how it feels to use the legs to pull your spine off the floor, and then placing the vertebrae back down one by one. And so perhaps maybe one more time, sinking into your feet, letting your spine come up off the floor, vertebrae by vertebrae, and then placing your spine back down, just seeing it's always quite tricky to go down vertebrae by vertebrae, particularly in the lower back, but we have that intention. Very nice. And then let your pelvis rest onto the ground, let a breath come in, and as the breath leaves you, fold your knees into your chest and hold around your knees. Let's do a little bit of rocking from side to side here. So you could be rocking from side to side, you could be circling around the back of your pelvis, if that feels good. You could also let your head rock in the same direction as your knees, if you like. And then one last thing we're going to do here before we roll on to one side is take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. Very nice. Very nice seeing everyone's legs. Good. So from here, we're going to roll on to one side. It doesn't matter which, but I think if you've got to be on your more comfortable side, so roll onto your side. You can pop the cushion under the side of your head. So you're lying on your side with your knees bent at a right angle to your body. So have a look at me if you're not sure. And then I won't stay here because I want to be able to look at you. So on your side. And I think to start with, because first of all, we're going to do the movement where we're lifting our bottom ribs away from the floor. So you might want to bring your top hand to stand on the floor in front of you, bending your elbow. And then just see what it's like. What is it like? Can you lift your bottom ribs away from the floor and place them back down? So again, it's not a huge movement, but it's an interesting movement. So can we lift the ribs away from the floor, and then can we let them settle back down again? And repeat that a few times. And then we're going to come to that movement I was demonstrating where we're rolling a little bit. So we're starting off, we're on the side of our body and the side of our head. And then you start to think about rolling a bit more towards the back of your head. And just let your arms follow. So you're rolling towards the back of your head. You're letting your top shoulder roll backwards. Your top arm can follow. And it's fine. If your knees are sliding a bit, that's also fine. So you're just letting yourself roll forwards and back a little bit. Thinking about really how is it to roll from the side of the head towards the back of your head, and letting your arms follow in a comfortable way. And it might be when you roll forwards a bit more, you roll a bit more towards the front of your face, but you probably don't want to roll too far onto your face. Just keep it comfortable. It might be that if you're wanting to, and you don't necessarily have to, if you're wanting to bring your top shoulder towards the floor behind you, you might need to let your top knee come away from the bottom knee. So these are all just options. It's just more that you're having a little play around with here. How does your body feel? What movement's available to you right now? What feels good? That's nice. So maybe just once or twice more on this side. So what we're doing here is we're really addressing tension in the rib cage. And I think I've talked quite a bit recently in these classes about things we can do to help support healthy breathing. So this is a really good movement just to release tension from the rib cage, which, you know, helps us to maybe be able to breathe a bit more fully and freely. Now, just before, when we've finished on this side, we're going to roll onto our backs for a couple of breaths. But before you do that, come back and revisit the first movement on your side, the lifting the ribs away from the floor, the bottom ribs, and just see if that feels any different, having done our rolling movement. So you're on your side. How does it feel to lift your bottom ribs off the floor and then place them back down? Whether it feels any easier. And then in your own time, roll onto your back again and just settle on your back for a couple of breaths. And see how it is to be back on your back. Usually rather nice. So lying on your back, having a couple of breaths there. And then in a moment, we're going to do all those movements on the second side. So when you're ready, rolling onto your next side. So again, settling down. The idea of having the cushion, you don't have to have a cushion under the side of your head, but it may be more comfortable for your bottom shoulder. So settling on your side, your top hand could be standing on the floor in front of you. And try that movement where you're lifting your bottom ribs away from the floor and then placing them back down. And then when you're ready, move into the second movement, which is rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head, letting your arms and your shoulders follow. Maybe your top leg slides on the bottom of Good. Yeah, so just repeating on this side, those same movements. So Kate, I just muted you. I will unmute you now. So good. So just remember, if you don't have to take your top shoulder all the way towards the floor behind you, but if you are doing that movement, you might want to let your top knee come away from the bottom knee to help you bring your top shoulder towards the floor. Good. Very nice. And then maybe do this once or twice more on this side, and then finish up on your side again, just seeing how it feels to lift those bottom ribs away from the floor. And then from here, so do a couple of times, lifting those bottom ribs away from the floor, seeing how it feels. And then just settle for a couple of quiet. Looks very nice, Sarah. I can see your ribs moving very well there. Yes, so yeah, those are very interesting. Those people, I can see the sides of their bodies. I can see the ribs moving very nicely. Doesn't matter whether I can see your ribs or not. From your side, Siobhan, you look like you're having another lie down. Sadly, from your side, you're going to be coming over into child pose. So it's nothing too dramatic, but yeah, so coming over into child pose when you're ready, and just, yeah, seeing how it feels to be a different orientation to the floor. So coming to settle in child pose, seeing how it feels. It may or not, if child pose doesn't feel particularly comfy at this point, you could always be on your forearms and rocking forwards and back rather than staying in child pose. And just see how you feel. Because from here, we're going to do a couple of dog poses, and then we're going to be coming up into standing. But if you need a little bit longer in child pose, that's absolutely fine. So just, however your body's feeling today, however your energy levels are. So either staying in child pose a bit longer, or if you're feeling you want to see how dog pose feels, then coming onto hands and knees, tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips up and back into dog. And a few breaths in dog pose. So yes, as I was saying, a couple of dog poses in your own time. So see how that first one feels. Might well be that you want to bend both knees or one knee. Seeing if you can rest down through your arms. When you come down from that first dog pose, you could either fold into child pose again, or you could go straight back into another dog pose. So, yeah. Very nice dogs. So from your second dog pose, you're going to, when you've had a bit of time in that dog pose, you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet, into a forward bend, and then rolling up into standing, because we're actually going to do a sequence that will take us back onto hands and knees in a moment. So yeah, see how dog pose feels. Bend both knees, bend one knee at a time. And then when you're ready, big hand prints walking in towards your feet, arriving in a forward bend. Let your head go. If at this point your lower back feels a bit tight and you want to bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs, you can do. You might want your knees bent. Entirely up to you. When you're ready, on an exhale, sink into your heels and roll up into standing, or walk your hands up your thighs if your lower back needs that support. And we'll end up in standing. So very nice to see you all. So in standing, let's just do this loose, easy twist. Like, is that someone else joining us? Is that Sandra? No, that's Siobhan joining us. Good. Yeah. So loose, easy, swinging twist. seeing how it feels to be upright. Upright and aware. We're upright a lot of the time, but maybe not that aware. So a couple more times, swinging our arms. And then we will settle down into standing. So at this point, have a look down at your feet, organise your feet so they're hip width apart and parallel. And then, yeah, just drop your weight down into your feet. So perhaps the thing you could do first of all is a bit of rocking your weight from side to side. So just feel your weight come over one leg and come over the other leg. So if you like, you could close your eyes as you do this. It's obviously much easier to feel what's going on in our body if we're closing our eyes. Obviously doing classes online, sort of, we're looking a bit more than perhaps we normally do in yoga. So it's good to take these moments to feel. So yes, closing your eyes, feeling your weight shifting side to side. And then the other thing I'd like you to do is shift your weight forwards and back along the length of your footprints. So again, you could do this with your eyes closed. Obviously don't go too far forwards or back or you will topple over. That's it. So then from rocking forwards and back, then let your weight settle down. And we're going to open our eyes now if your eyes were closed. And what I'd like you to do now is to start to rock your weight forwards into the balls of your feet and let your heels come up. And do this a few times. So coming onto the balls of your feet, coming back down. Yeah, that's very nice. It's quite cute. I see everyone bobbing up and down in their little picture, little screens. Good. So up onto the balls of your feet, back down. If next time you come up and you feel reasonably stable, you could then add your arms in. That's it. And drop your shoulders down. So you're taking your arms up, but your shoulders are staying heavy and relaxed. Good. And we're trying to balance on the balls of our feet in this little mini balance, I suppose. A balance on 2 feet. And then come down, give your legs a little shake out. We'll repeat that one more time. So same thing. Let's see if we can take the arms up at the same time as coming up onto the balls of our feet. So on an exhalation, can you come up onto the balls of your feet and take your arms up and drop your shoulders down? And then have a few breaths here. And with all of these balances, it really doesn't matter if we do topple out. We can just come back into them again. Make sure you're breathing. That's always quite helpful. And then come back down, have another little shake out. I'm just going to come closer to the screen to show you, because we're going to do this. Some of you have done this with me before, this mudra in the balance. So we'll come up onto our toes, we'll bring our arms up, and then we'll touch our hands over our head in this mudra. So the pads of the thumbs and fingers are touching. We do it here. And then we'll bring the hands down in front of our chest. So all of this while we're balancing. And this mudra, this hand position is about concentration. So I really like it in balances. So let's let's come into the balance on the balls of our feet first. And then we can add the arms in. Okay, so when you're ready, coming up into your balance, bringing your arms up. And then that very interesting bit where without seeing our hands, we're touching the pads of the thumbs and the fingers. And then from there, can you bring your hands down in front of your chest? And just have a few breaths there, balancing. Good. That's very nice. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. Lovely. Oh, so nice. Well done, everyone. Come down, have a little shake out. So we're going to do a sequence now that takes us from the back of our mat down through a forward bend and dog pose and onto hands and knees. And we're going to do this sequence 3 times. And each time we end up on hands and knees, we'll do something slightly different. And we're going to start like we would for sun salute with the hands touching in prayer pose. So you want to have your feet hip width apart, your hands touching in prayer pose. So we just take this quiet moment at the start to feel the footprints on the floor, to feel the contact of the hands. Feel a breath come in, and as your breath leaves you, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders, and then as you exhale, you're going to gather forwards and roll down into a forward bend. And then let yourself arrive in the forward bend, and then you're going to walk your hands forwards into dog pose and see how that dog pose feels. So it's always interesting how far we walk our hands forwards. We have to make that judgment. Doesn't matter if the heels come up. That's absolutely fine. And then come down onto hands and knees. And take a moment to just look at where you've arrived so that you've got your hands under your shoulders and your hands are shoulder width apart. And you've got your knees under your hips and your knees are hip width apart. And we're going to do some cat movements here. So we're going to round up back to the ceiling and dip our spine to the floor. And just see how this feels several times. Let your breath flow in and out. And letting the breath move, unless you're blocked up with hay fever or a cold, let your breath move in and out through your nostrils. We can also do another favourite, I say favourite thing here, one of my favourite things are tail waggings. So Kate, I'm sure you know this one, where we imagine we have a dog's tail or a fish's tail. So if it's a dog's tail, we're wagging it from side to side. If it's a fish's tail, we're swishing it. And we could also do the same movement by swinging our lower legs from side to side in this little fish's movement. We swing our lower legs from side to side, that takes the pelvis with it. And then let's see from here. I'd just like you to maybe round up and dip down once or twice more in cat. And then can you come to a neutral place and see how it feels to lengthen each leg out behind you. Do this in turn. If at this point you realise your legs are coming off the back of your mat, you need to come a bit further forwards. And I think it might be good at this point just to sit back over your heels and shake your hands out, because we've been on the hands for quite a while. We're going to come into plank pose. So give your hands a shake out. When you come back onto hands and knees, if your feet were off the end of the mat, come a bit further forwards. So you want to have your hands shoulder width apart and under your shoulders. You're going to lengthen one leg back, lengthen the other leg back, come into your long, straight plank pose. So we're not sticking our bottoms up in the air, and we're not letting gravity pull our pelvis down to the floor. And we're really stretching into the heels. Oh, I'm feeling all the joy of plank pose. Come back down again. Give your hands another little bit shake out. If you want to, it's always quite helpful to bring the backs of the hands together and move the wrists the other way. We're going to come back into plank pose, and this time take it into dog pose. So come back onto your mat with your hands. Organise your hands under your shoulders. Lengthen one leg out behind you, bend the other leg. Have a few breaths here in your plank pose. And then obviously to move into dog pose, we're just sending our pelvis up and back. And see how that feels. It might feel that you've got a lot of distance between your hands and knees, and you might want to walk your feet in a little bit to make it feel a nicer dog pose. So that's a possibility. And from this dog pose, you're going to, whenever you want to have a little breather, you're going to fold down into child pose. So it's up to you how long you stay in dog. And when you're ready, folding down into child pose. So let the forehead touch onto the ground, let your elbows rest down. Just feel yourself in child pose for a couple of breaths. Yes, very nice. And from child pose, come back onto hands and knees. You might want to just lengthen each leg out behind you. Oh, Rosie, are those your cats? How lovely. And then from hands and knees, you're going to tuck your toes under. You're going to walk your hands in towards your knees. So you come up onto the balls of your feet. And at this point, you might want to lengthen your toes out a bit if they're quite cramped up against each other. You could do a little bit of rocking here on the balls of your feet, but we're going to be moving from here into a forward bend. So when you're ready, using your hands to support you, start to send your heels down to the floor and your sit bones, your bottom, up to the ceiling. So you end up in a forward bend. And then we're going to roll up into standing like we do in sun salute. So touch the backs of your hands together. And as you roll up, you trail your hands up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling. Breathe in, let your shoulders drop, and then exhale, take your arms all the way out in a big circle, back round to prayer pose. And we're going to go back down to the floor, do something else this time, but just take a moment here, feeling your footprints on the floor, feeling the contact of your hands, feeling your breath within you. Then let a breath come in, let a breath leave you, take the arms down and then up. Let the breath come in and then curling, rounding forwards into your forward bend. And then walking your hands forwards on into dog pose. Big exhalations in dog. I always think about how my dogs like to yawn and make all these funny noises when they're doing their dog pose. And I'm not here today. Good. And then from dog, coming on to hands and knees. And just like we did to start with on the last side of the sequence. So again, make sure you've organised yourself well, hands under your shoulders and knees under your hips. And you can come to your cat movement. So a little bit of rounding and dipping. You can also do some tail wagging. And what we're going to do this time is lunge. And what I thought would be quite nice to do is a little bit of toing and froing in lunge. So moving between lunge and then rocking back. And if you look at my spine, it's a bit like an echo of cat pose, because if I come forwards in my lunge and come onto my fingertips a little bit, then my spine flattens out rather than dips. And if I go back and look back towards my back foot, my spine is rounding. And it also just helps with the lunge. So this sort of toing and froing. I've got my back toes flat because my back knee prefers that. These hands can come in. I'm keeping my chest close to my thigh here. So when we come forwards, it's obviously the stretch is in the back leg thigh, the front of the thigh. When we go back here, it's much more about our hamstrings in the front leg. We will swap on to the other side in a moment. So you could swap sides on hands and knees. If you wanted to go into dog pose, you could also do that. So you could go into dog and then you could swap sides in your lunge. But you could also swap sides from hands and knees. And then a bit of throwing inside to the lunge. So look, when I come forwards in this, I let my knee come a bit further forwards of my heel, and then that's it. As long as your heel can stay down, that's fine. So just when you're doing these things, just make sure they feel comfortable, particularly in the knees. The knees are the things you need to be, I suppose, be aware of. So, shifting your weight forwards and back, thinking about what your spine is doing, your hands can walk in. Now, after this side of lunge, I would like everyone to come into dog pose. And so it could be straight from your lunge, or it could be from hands and knees. So coming onto hands and knees, nice big handprints on the floor, tucking your toes under, exhale, rock your hips back and then up into dog. Have a few breaths in dog pose. And then whenever you're ready, so if you're enjoying being in dog, stay there. But from dog pose, we're going to fold down into child pose for a few breaths. So That's where you're headed to next. Settling in child pose. Again, we have this sort of quiet moment where we touch the ground with our forehead and our elbows. And we just see how it feels to be for a minute. And I think, as Sally was saying at the beginning of class, life has changed and maybe feels like it's on a hold, but also it can feel quite busy. Yes, and if you prefer, if you don't like child pose, which I know a couple of you are not so keen, maybe Rosie and Mel, you can always just sit quietly in kneeling, if you like kneeling. That can be really very quietening itself, hands resting on the thighs. We're going to come back into standing the same way we did the first cycle of the sequence. So you might want to come and give your legs a stretch out on hands and knees. It's always good for the knees to keep straightening the legs and then bending the knees. And I speak as someone who's had, very sort of minor knee niggles over the years. And then so from here, so from hands and knees, the toes tucked under, coming onto the balls of your feet. Bit of rocking here, maybe spreading the toes out. These lovely things. And then we'll be taking this movement into a forward bend. So send the heels down, the sit bones up, arrive in your forward bend, let your head hang, then touch the backs of your hands together. And as you exhale, roll up into standing, hands up, straight up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling. Breathe in, exhale. We all okay?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes. Yeah. We're going to do one more cycle of this sequence, again with something slightly different when we're down on the floor. So at the back of your mat, feet hip width apart, hands in prayer pose. Let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let the breath come in. And as you exhale, you're going to be rolling down into your forward bend. Let your head go, bend your knees as much as you like, then walking your hands on into dog pose. How does this dog pose feel? Remember, you can bend your knees one at a time, both together. And very nice. And from your dog, coming on down to hands and knees and doing some cat movements and some tail wagging again. So just as we have in the other cycles of the sequence. Cat, tail wagging. And then we're going to stay on hands and knees. So if you feel that you need to sit back and give your hands a little shake out, might be quite helpful at this point. Then we're going to come on to hands and knees, but it's going to be a longer hands and knees position. So your hands are a little bit further forwards. And you're just going to start to see, how does it feel to start to rock your pelvis forward? So we're edging towards face up dog, but we're perhaps not going all the way so far. So in face up dog, it's when we give the weight of the pelvis down and our gaze comes forwards. But just, in this position, you can be very sort of gentle and, we'll say, tentative. You don't have to go particularly far. It might then be nicer for your lower back, if you want to go all the way into face up dog, to tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels, and then travel forwards, rounding your back to the ceiling. So we really lengthen out the lower back. And then when your shoulders are over your wrists, then you can let your pelvis go. You can look forwards. You can untuck your toes. So you could try repeating that. Tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels. And then as you exhale, travel forwards the same way. Keep looking at your pelvis. So your pelvis is coming forwards. And then eventually you let the pelvis hang. We're trying to feel the shoulders are over the wrists at this point. And then this time, rock all the way back into child pose. Keep your feet flat on the floor. and rest down. Make sure the wrists and the hands have a good rest here. And don't worry, there will be a bit more face up dog. So if you're thinking this is the only chance for face up dog, it isn't, okay? So we will do a little bit more. I know some of you are keen. And sorry for those of you who aren't. So one last time, we're going to be coming onto hands and knees, lengthening each leg out behind us, if you like, tucking your toes under, coming into this lovely place where we're rocking on the balls of our feet. And then from here, remember, we can lengthen it, we can spread the toes out a bit. And then from here, sending the heels down and the sit bones up, let the head go. Touch the backs of the hands together, rolling up into standing. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. All the way back to here. Good. So we're back in standing. So just see how it feels. If you're at the end of your mat, maybe come more towards the middle of your mat. And we're going to come back to this one. Swinging the arms. Just going to come a bit nearer. Kate, how are you doing energy-wise?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Okay, good. See how you go, because we're going to do a balance in standing. Then we're going to do a couple of cycles of sun salute. So if you feel you need to sit that out and have a little rest, that, you know, just see.
Okay.
See how you feel by that point. Because that would be something that you could sit out and then you could join in afterwards.
Okay.
So, come and settle in standing with your feet hip width apart and parallel. So we're going to come and do a standing balance here. And we're going to then do a couple of cycles of sun salute and come back to the balance and take it a little bit further. What I'd like you to do in this balance is work with this mudra, where the one where we touch the thumb and the index finger. So it's in one position, it's Jnana mudra, and the other one is chin mudra, with, I think, with the palm down. We're going to use it today to be the hand. So it's going to be the hand on our breastbone. We're going to be catching the other foot, and then we'll take this arm up. So perhaps actually the first thing you need to decide is which foot you're going to stand on. So forget your mudra for a moment. Come to a little bit of rocking your weight from side to side. And just decide which foot you'd like to stand on first. And then you're going to shift your weight into your standing foot, and you're going to be catching the other foot. So the top of the foot or your trouser leg. Now, I say have your hand in the mudra, but if you need to have this hand on the wall for support, that's fine. If you can balance without the wall, you're going to bring your hand that's not holding the foot into the mudra and place it on your breastbone. And just have a few breaths there. So this is quite a steadying place when we have our hand on the breastbone. And then from here, as you exhale, you're going to keep the finger and thumb touching and take the arm up towards the ceiling. So you've got this awareness going all the way down to your footprint and then all the way up to your hand and that mudra. So the contact of the thumb and the index finger. Feel that the center of the palm is soft, your shoulder is relaxed. See if you can feel the flow of your breath in and out. And you could bring your hand back to your breastbone for a moment, so this feeling of gathering in, and then releasing your leg, releasing your hand. Have a little shake out. And we're going to work with the mudras a little bit more today. This mudra and some other ones. I'm quite interested in them at the moment. So let's do the other side. So first of all, shifting your weight into the foot. You can bring your hand into your mudra on your breastbone whenever you're ready. And just a couple of breaths here. So we're maybe feeling the rise and fall of the breastbone with the breathing. Sorry.
I can feel, I'm wondering what your back's doing here, Kara. I can feel my sort of
Are you feeling that your back is
curving? Yeah,
yeah,
sort of,
if that's the case, you might want to hold on to your trouser leg rather than, and just let the leg be relaxed. So I think as much as possible, you just want to let the tailbone drop rather than tip. So yeah, it's a good point though, definitely. I think just, yeah, keep it easy, because in this one we're doing when we take the arm up, we're just staying quite long and straight through the spine. But it all depends. Sorry, let me just turn that off. Sorry about that. Yes, in this one, come down that we're doing, it depends really on the quads. So if you're a bit tight through here, through the front of the thighs, it might be that it makes your lower back arch. So have a little shake out. Sorry about my phone ringing. I have it there in case anyone's having technical problems. So I'm going to So look, what we're going to do now, I'm just checking this is right and I haven't forgotten anything, is we're going to go through a couple of cycles of sun salute just to get us moving. We've done all of the elements in our little sequence we did. So I think, yes, you're just going to do it with me. I'll talk you through and we'll go fairly slowly. And again, Kate, if you feel you need to have a rest, do so. Or anyone else.
right. Go and have a pee, I think.
Lie down and have a rest. So hands in prayer pose at the front of your mat now. So yeah, touching your hands in prayer pose. Let a breath come in as you exhale. Take the arms down and then up. Let the breath come in, and then as you exhale, folding down into a forward bend. In your forward bend, bend your knees enough so your fingertips touch the floor, and you're going to step your right foot back into lunge. Just let yourself arrive in lunge. And then we always have this fun bit in sun salute where we're trying to go from lunge into plank pose. So doing that as smoothly as you can, stepping your other foot back into your plank pose, having a breath or two in plank pose. And then from plank pose, keep your toes tucked. Let your knees come down, fold your hips back over your heels, keep your hands where they are. It's a long child pose with your toes tucked under and your elbows off the floor. From here, we're going to breathe in and then we're going to travel forwards, rounding our back into face up dog. So there you go, face up dog, fans. We get to do another face up dog. We're traveling forwards, untucking the toes, arriving in face up dog. And then from face up dog, you can either go straight into dog pose, tucking your toes under, or go through hands and knees and into dog. And when you end up in dog, you might feel a bit long and you might want to walk your feet in. Couple of exhalations here. And then we're going to be stepping the right foot forwards back into lunge. So you might come up onto your fingertips to give you a bit of an extra lift here. Exhaling, the footsteps forwards. Good. Let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, we'll step the back foot forwards to join the front foot. Ending up in your forward bend. And just as we did in the other sequence, touch the backs of your hands together, roll up into standing. Now you can do with sun salute, you can take it into a little back arch at the end, if you like, if your lower back is happy with that. And then bring your hands back down into and we're going on to the next side. So, at the front of your mat, let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let the breath come in as you exhale, rolling down into your forward bend. Let your head go, let your arms go. Fingertips on the floor, exhale, step the left foot back into lunge. So arriving in your lunge, very nice, and then on into plank pose as smoothly as you can. You might end up sticking your bottom up in dog a bit, that's fine. Have a couple of breaths in your long, straight plank pose. And then keep toes where they are, keep them tucked, let your knees come down, keep your hands where they are. Fold back into this long toes tucked under child. Let the breath come in. As the breath leaves you, round your back to the ceiling, travel forwards into face up dog. Another breath there, and then on into dog pose. Have a couple of breaths, maybe in dog pose. You could walk your feet in a little bit towards your hands. And then to come forwards, up onto your fingertips if you like, one hand or both. Exhale, step the left foot forwards. Arrive in your lunge, exhale, then step the right foot forwards. Good. Let the head go at this point. And then as you exhale, touch the backs of the hands together, rolling up into standing. Maybe the arms go straight up. Maybe you do a little back arch if you want to. And then hands down in front of you in prayer pose. So let's see how we're doing. We're carrying on, I think, and do once more on each side. So let a breath come in, exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in and then exhale, folding down into your forward bend and then stepping your right foot back into lunge. Arrive in your lunge and then on into plank pose as smoothly as possible. Have a breath or two in plank pose, just really feeling long, straight, supported. Toes tucked under, knees come down to the ground. Keep your hands planted, elbows off the ground. Your forehead can touch down. Let the breath come in, and then as you exhale, rounding your back to the ceiling, traveling forwards into your face up dog. Let the breath come in. And then exhaling up into your dog pose. Walking your feet in a bit if you like. Bending your knees, the right foot's going to step forwards into lunge. Arrive in this lunge. Sometimes this lunge gets missed out, I can see. Arrive in that lunge and then step the back foot forwards into your forward bend, touching the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing, into the little back arch if you want to. Hands back down into prayer pose. So one last time, let a breath come in. As the breath leaves you, take your arms down and then up. Breathing in, exhaling, rolling down into your forward bend. The left foot's going to step back into lunge. Breath come in lunge and then on into plank pose. Just feeling yourself in plank, really sending the heels back, feeling the bones of the arms supporting you. The knees come down, the hands stay where they are, toes tucked, hips fold back over the heels. Let a breath come in. As the breath leaves you, rounding your back to travel forwards into your face up dog. Let a breath come in here, feel the chest is wide, and then the out breath can take you into dog. And maybe just have an extra breath or two in dog, because I think this might be the last dog we're doing this morning, so might want to enjoy it. Resting through the arms, bending one knee, bending the other knee. And then you're going to step the left foot forwards into lunge. Arriving in your lunge again, letting your gaze come forwards, and then step the back foot forwards into a forward bend. Arrive in that forward bend, and then as the breath leaves you, rolling all the way up into the arch, and then back down into prayer pose. Very nice, everyone. So having a little shake out. And let's just, before we're going to take that balance we did a little bit further. But before we do that, just come to settle in standing with one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And just let yourself drop down in standing. So it's just this feeling of, can we let all the sort of busyness of our mind settle down into our body, so we're feeling ourselves in standing, our footprints on the floor, the movement of our breath within us. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Okay, have a little shake out. So I'm just trying to think the best way to show you. So we're going to come back to, I think if I show you side on, we're going to come back to the balance with our hands in the mudra, catching the foot here. So Kate, what you said, it's important to be mindful of the lower back, because from here, we're going to see how it feels to reach our leg back. And if you can see, I've taken my hand with the mudra forwards and the palms facing up. It's a bit like you're offering, I was thinking you're offering, making an offering a gift to someone here. And it's not really about the shape you're making, it's about something that feels quite joyful and free in your body. So if your lower back doesn't feel happy, that would not be joyful and free. So obviously we want to start. Another thing you can do if your lower back doesn't feel great in this one is to use a belt or a scarf to catch your foot, but that can make you feel a bit more wobbly. Obviously at this point you want to feel steady, you don't have to go any further. And then it's just, what's it like to take the leg back and the arm forwards and keeping that mudra, and you might try a couple of times. So this is about movement, it's about feeling expansive.
Is the leg turning outwards or staying with the knee dropped towards the floor?
Oh, we see, I think in this one it's actually nice if you want to let the pelvis turn. So you don't have to, but it, yeah, I think these are all possibilities. So, which may be a bit unconventional, but I think it's just about where could you go to from that initial place. So your knee could point to the ground, you could let your pelvis turn outward. And it is sort of what feels, I always say with this one, what feels joyful, but then some people take exception to that. So. And so it's expansive as maybe a thing to think about at the moment, when perhaps our lives are not as expansive as we might want them to be, used to them being. So do try the other side. So the same thing. So we start with the hand in the mudra on the breastbone, catching our foot, catching our trouser leg. And it might be that today you just want to stay here in the centre. You don't want to feel any more expansive, or you feel joyful enough here. But from here, then it's just, what's it like to take the arm forwards and the leg back? And it might not be that you stay there. And it might be that your knee points towards the floor. Sarah, if you were asking, I think it was you asking that. So we've got all these different possibilities. Obviously, if we move around, we're more likely to fall out of it, but then that's fine. We can just catch up again. Breathing, yes. Nice. If you're, I know we probably had quite enough of this one now, but if you are doing this one, it's quite nice, that feeling when you move your foot back away from your bottom. So your foot might be quite close to your bottom to start with, and it might move further back away from your bottom. And that sort of helps to balance you, as well as just stretch through your thigh. Yes, and Rosie, that's exactly what we're going to be doing now. So maybe minus the lovely cats. So after those balances, it is nice for the lower back to have a lengthen out in a squat. So this might be where you want to have something ready to go under your heels, depending on how easy or hard squatting is for you. So I always like to go into a squat from a forward bend, and then start to bend my knees and pop the wedge under it. Because if we're thinking about being in a squat to help lengthen out our lower back, it doesn't really matter too much how we get there. So I know some of you quite like going into a squat like this, staying more upright. So that's another possibility. But however you go into your squat, use a hook or a wedge, if you've got one, or roll up the back of your mat, or use your cushion to support your heels, so you could have a few breaths here. And again, I always say this, some of you like to take your knees wider apart and fold in between them. Sometimes that feels too much of a stretch for my lower back. So that's it's a possibility, but it's not for everyone every day. And from our squat, we're going to maneuver your way around. You might want to, I'm just thinking, you might want to just lengthen your legs out in sitting at the moment. Actually, you were squatting a little bit longer. Roll. So we're coming down now, and we're going to do a little sequence of sort of sitting and hip things, and then we're going to do a little bit of sitting with mudras. Quite familiar. So coming into cobbler pose is the first thing you're going to do. I think we're just moving devices around why it's a little bit noisy at the moment. So it carries
Sorry,
on.
I'm moving a chair around here.
Or chair, okay. That's fine. So these things go on. So just, yeah, seeing how cobbler pose feels today. You could be sitting, leaning back on your arms. So it really depends how this feels for you, how it feels today. So yeah, leaning back is one possibility. You could hold your feet, you could hold your ankles, you could do a little bit of rocking side to side in this one. And see how that feels. So I think it depends what sort of surface you're on in this. If you've got a nice padded surface under you, it might feel fine. If it's a bit, if you're on a hard wooden floor, it might feel a little bit knobbly. So there's this one where you're rocking onto one sit bone and the other. And then there's this one where you're sort of side bending. So both sit bones stay down and you're leaning side to side. And again, all these little things, just do what feels comfortable, what feels pleasant. And then, Kate, this is one I do a lot, and I'm not sure whether it'll be familiar with you. From cobbler pose, you're going to let one knee, doesn't matter which, because we do both sides, one knee comes on top of the other knee, and then you slide your top leg back. So we come into this position that's called pinwheel, and we do a bit of circling here. So we expect in this place to feel that this hip is a bit higher up than this one, this sit bone and the hip joint.
Can we put a cushion under a knee?
And which knee is it? This knee, Kate?
Yeah, yeah.
What is it? Is it uncomfortable?
No, not too bad, no.
Just watch what we're going to do, because you could put a cushion on, but what we're going to do is we're going to take our weight towards that knee and lean down over that leg. So it might be that actually you don't need the cushion. If it's more comfy with the cushion, have it. But at this point, you'll feel that the other buttock comes off the floor. How is that now? Is that okay?
Fine. Yeah, good.
Okay. So I just think a cushion might sort of get in the way of this movement. So, and then in this movement, we just rest down as much as we can. It might even be that the head comes onto the floor. And we have a few breaths here. They can be quiet breaths, or they can be big sighing breaths. And then from there, we can walk our hands in a little bit. So we come back up a bit more. And then we're going to move into pigeon pose from here. So what you're going to do is this knee that you were just folded over, you're going to slide that knee back a little bit on your mat. And then you're going to lengthen the other leg out and let your pelvis roll round. So obviously, if this doesn't feel good, again, what you need to be aware of is the front knee. If that front knee feels there's pressure in it, then roll a bit off center like this. So your weight goes through the whole of the front leg thigh. If your front knee feels fine, you can let your pelvis roll over like this. So the pelvis is more level. And you might need to bring your hand on the back of your pelvis to tell whether it's level. And so in pigeon, you could do a little bit of rocking with your back toes tucked under, forwards and back along your mat. You could rock a little bit side to side. I mean, again, these are just whatever your body feels is good to help you settle. And these little rocking movements are things that we tend to do quite naturally. From here, so it might be that you want to spend a bit longer in pigeon. It might be that you like to walk your hands in. I'm just giving you these options. From here, we're going to come into cow legs. So if you're not enjoying pigeon, you're get to have the joy of cow legs. So from pigeon, you're going to be rolling onto this front leg thigh, and we're going to see how it feels to swing the back leg around and come into our cow legs. Now, there are options here. This might be a point where you want to have the cushion under both of your sit bones. It might be that you want to have the foot standing on the floor here instead. Is it Marie? You straighten out your bottom leg, don't you?
For this here I do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another option, is to straighten out the bottom leg, and this foot could either be standing on the floor or the side of the foot on the floor. So are we all tolerably comfortable in our cow legs? Kate, are you okay there? I can't
Yes,
see
I
you.
don't resemble cow legs at all, but
Okay, that's fine. Turning
I
towards
think
your
comfortable is the right word, Cara.
What's that?
I said I don't think comfortable is the appropriate word. Tolerating. Tolerating.
Are you what should I say? Are you? Yes. Maybe I'm thinking if I say the word comfortable, you might think, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. You can turn towards your.
Oh, we're going to the knee.
So some of you I know love cow legs and might want to stay here a bit longer. If, as Siobhan was saying, you're not comfortable at all, you're going to lean back onto your hands, gently uncross your legs, lengthen them out, give them a bit of a roll. And it might be, we're going to go on to the other side in a moment, it might be that some of you would like to sit for a moment to just have a couple of breaths with your legs long and wide. So you could either have your legs long and not so wide, or those of you, I know some of you are rather keen on this one. Very nice angle there, Sarah, of your foot.
Yeah, I've just seen that.
So we're going to move on to side 2 of that whole little sequence. So most of you, I know we do this quite a lot, or variations of it. For those who are less familiar with it, maybe side 2 will be easier. So you're back into cobbler pose, and then we'll bring the knee, we're going to the other side now. So the knee that was your front leg in pigeon is now coming on top of the other knee, and then that leg is sliding back. So we're in pinwheel facing the other way. If you're in pinwheel facing the same way, then swap over. A little bit of circling here. And then just like we did on the other side, turning to face the knee that's going out to the side, folding the weight of our body over this leg and having a few breaths resting there. If you quite like, I just find this a really sort of comforting, settling place to be, so you're very welcome to stay there a bit longer. From pinwheel, we're going to be coming up, we're going to be sliding that leg that we folded over back a little bit, the knee slides back a little bit, so that we can then lengthen out the other leg and come on into pigeon. Again, we need to make sure that this front knee is comfortable. If your back knee is feeling pressure, you might want to just put some padding under it. So your cushion, or if it's a jumper or a sock. If the front knee is not happy, then just let your pelvis roll off to the side and take the pressure off the knee. Have the weight down through the top of the thigh bone. If you can roll your pelvis around comfortably, you could then bring your hand to your back of your pelvis and just see your pelvis level. That's the bit I always have a look at in class. So I can't see everyone's pelvises here. I might just have a little look now. Have a few breaths in your pigeons. Very nice. Yes, any sort of rocking that you want to do. All looks very beautiful. So again, it's entirely up to you how long you stay in pigeon, whether you want to walk your hands in Make sure your shoulders stay soft and relaxed if you do this. And of course, the joy, if we're moving on from pigeon, we're going into cow legs. So you might think, okay, I will stay in pigeon a little bit longer. So when you are ready to move into cow legs, you're rolling onto that outside edge of that front leg, the outside of the hip. And then swinging the back leg around. My cat's now into on into cow legs. So just remember, in cow legs, you've got all these options. You could be here, and this is really fine. You could be lengthening your bottom leg out. So again, in that sense that we want to do something that's not putting strain on the knees. We are, as Siobhan was expecting to say, we are going to feel a certain amount of stretch around the outside of the hip joints. That's what cow is all about. And yes, if you're doing more running at the moment, which I think a lot of people are, then cow is really good for that. A little bit of turning towards your top leg and thigh. Having a few breaths there if you can bear that. Very nice. Let your shoulders drop. Let the breath come in. Let the breath leave you. If you want a few more breaths, if you like cow legs and you want to be here longer and fold forwards, you can do. If you are ready to come out, uncrossing your legs. And you could, yes, revisit this one. Couple more breaths. Just letting your legs lengthen out, because in a moment we're going to come and sit, and we're going to sit with the sequence of mudras, of hand positions. And I will mute everyone at that point because it's going to be our sort of quiet sitting. And so I just find the mudras are really, they're just very fun. They're very, they help us quieten, but they're very sort of really. So from this place, I just want you to have a think about how would be the most comfortable way for you to sit. You might want your back against a wall. You could sit in a chair. You could sit cross-legged on a cushion. If you wanted to sit with your legs wide, you could do, but maybe with your back, maybe not really wide, but maybe with your back against a sofa or the wall or something. So let's, yes, and put something warm on. So if you need something, yeah, if you need to be a bit warmer, just make sure that I don't sit as near as I do something. I need to sit so you can see my hands on my thighs. You could be kneeling, that's another option. So if you like kneeling. Oh, so yes, I will come and mute everybody now. I will unmute you then after this, I think. So yes, if you need to speak to me about anything, just wave at me. So the first position we're going to start in is with the thumb and the index finger touching and the backs of the hands resting on the thighs. So this, I think, is Jnana Mudra. And you might want to have a couple of big sighing breaths just to let the shoulders drop. And actually in this one, what I quite like to do is touch the pad of my thumb to the nail of the index finger. You don't have to do that. You could touch the pad of the thumb and the pad of the finger. But I quite like the pad of the thumb and the nail of the finger. So we're just actually starting with just trying to settle. So the shoulders drop, the elbows are heavy. We let the hands rest. We let the center of the palms be soft. And we just see how is it to settle with the hands in this position, with this feeling of contact between the thumb and the index finger. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave us. And then keeping the thumb and index finger touching, you're going to turn your hands so they're palms down on your thighs. So the other three fingers are still long. The thumb and the index finger are still touching. You're just turning the hands the other way up. And this now becomes chin mudra, I think. And so see, how does this feel? Give yourself a bit of time to settle with this new hand position. Letting your breathing settle, letting your awareness settle. So feeling the weight and warmth of your hands on your thighs. Feeling that contact between the thumb and the index finger. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from here, keep the thumb and the index finger touching. Keep the palms facing the thighs, but fold your other three fingers in towards the center of your palms. And see how that feels. So you've still got that steady contact of thumb and index finger. The other three fingers in each hand are folded into the center of your palms. And your hands are still resting, palms down on your thighs. Let the hands settle, let the shoulders drop. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And before we do the last hand position, you might want to just lengthen your fingers out and turn your palms upwards for a moment. And then look, I hope you can see this. You fold one thumb across your palm and you wrap your fingers around your thumb. Yeah? So you wrap your fingers around your thumbs and then you rest these little fists you've made on your thighs. And this is, we'll just settle for a few more breaths in this position. So you want to settle the hands. You want to feel your fingers encircling your thumbs, but not gripping them for dear life. Letting the shoulders drop, letting the elbows feel heavy. Letting these soft little fists rest on your thighs. The feeling of the thumb encircled by the other four fingers. The feeling of your breath flowing in and out. Just notice where your awareness is, and if your attention has drifted, just for another 2 or 3 cycles of breath, see if you can gather your awareness into the feeling of your hands, resting on your thighs, your thumb encircled by your fingers, and also the feeling of your breath flowing in and out. And then in your own time, just gently release your hands. You might like to fold forwards, hands on the ground, even forehead touching the ground. We're going to lie down now. So I will briefly unmute you, but then I will mute you again in a little bit. So you're unmuted now. That's it. So lie down onto your backs. We're going to do some simple movements on our backs. Yeah, we're just going to do some simple things on our backs that I don't need to show you. And then we're going to just lie quietly. So yeah, if you need to put on warmer things now, you could do, maybe have your blanket to hand, because we're going to move a little bit just before we put blankets on. So settle down onto your backs. So just, yeah, lie down however you want to start with, and just let yourselves arrive.
Sorry, Cara, I missed that. We're lying down.
We're lying down, yeah. So lie down, we're going to lie down, do a couple of little movements, and then we're going to just finish lying quietly. So have a blanket ready by your side. But yeah, I think just arrive on your back first of all. And yeah, let yourself arrive on your back. Maybe the first thing you could do, like we did right at the beginning of class, is letting your head roll to the right and to the left. Yes, also that, Marie, as well. So once you've settled, you can also bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor, and just let your knees tilt a little bit to the right and to the left. Just doing a few nice things to help us settle down. Knees tilting to the right and to the left. Letting your head roll. Okay, pause in the center for a moment. So if your knees are not bent, bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor, pause in the center, and then give yourself a hug with your arms. So you're crossing your elbows over your chest. That's it, very nice. Oh, with your feet on the floor, however. And then start to rock from side to side. So let your knees and your elbows and your head all rock a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. That's very nice. So you're rocking across the back of your body, rolling across the back of your body, sort of to the right and then to the left. And it's entirely up to you how far you go. Keep it comfortable, keep it easy. Imagine that you're giving yourself a bit of a massage. If you feel that you're rolling onto your fingers, you could stick your fingers out away from your body. Yeah, so they're sort of trailing out to the sides if you feel that you're rolling on top of them and trapping them. And then we're just going to very briefly, you're going to uncross your arms. See if you can do this without sitting up. Can you roll over from your back onto your belly and just lie? So I've been I was reading, I think I've said to a lot of you, I was reading an article which was saying how helpful it is for our breathing to lie on our belly. So I'm trying to make sure we do it even briefly in every class. Yeah, and can we roll onto our belly without having to get up? And just lie on the belly for a moment. Give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. Yeah, uncross your arms if you're lying on your belly. That's not going to feel comfortable. Give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle from side to side. Have your arms wherever is comfortable. You could be resting your forehead on the back of your hands. And the other thing you could do on your belly if you wanted to, which Kate, I don't know, your lower back might not like this, is to bend your knees and bring your lower legs off the floor. So the soles of your feet are orientated towards the ceiling. Mel, I know you like this. And then you're tilting your lower legs from side to side. So if you're doing this and your lower back doesn't like it, just bring your feet down a bit nearer to the floor, or don't do it. Tilting side to side a few times. That's it. And then just settle, sorry, there's something at my door. Just settle back onto your belly and have a couple of breaths there. Okay, and
Was that your door, Kara?
That was my door, sorry, yes.
It was, I thought it was mine.
No, sorry, it was my door. And then finally, just roll. Again, can you roll from your belly onto your back with as little effort as possible? So roll back onto your back. And then when you arrive on your back, just do whatever you want to do. In terms of, it might be folding your knees to your chest, it might be lengthening your legs out, it might be bending your knees, standing your feet on the floor. Okay, and then we are going to settle down quietly now, just for a few breaths. So, let's say a few breaths, a couple of minutes. Let me see how we're doing. Yeah, just for a few minutes. So, blankets, you could lie with your knees bent, your legs long. If there's a sofa nearby, you could put your legs up on the sofa. Nice to see everyone's cozy blankets. So I will mute everyone, and yeah, I think just so we have a bit of quiet, and hopefully that is, my doorbell was not supposed to go before 11. Do it again. So just, yes, settling down, and again, it might be nice, like we did at the beginning of class, to bring your hands to rest on the front of your body. So there's something very soothing about the hands resting on the front of the body. And it also helps us connect with our breathing. And it might be to settle that we need to have a couple of big sighing breaths, and just encouraging ourselves to settle, to rest, to let go of any unnecessary tension. So maybe just for a few cycles of breath, bring your awareness to your breathing wherever you feel your breath most clearly in your body. There's no right or wrong place for this. It could be at your nostrils, in the back of your throat, somewhere right down inside your rib cage and chest, or your belly. Just allowing your breath to flow in, your breath to flow out. Not trying to change it in any way, just allowing it to be exactly as it is right now. And then expand your awareness outward to sense the ground beneath you. So feeling the back of your head on the ground, the back of the shoulders settling down, the back of the rib cage, maybe some of the vertebrae in touch with the floor. back of the pelvis. Feel the width, feel the weight of your pelvis on the ground. And then depending how you have your feet organised, you might feel your footprints on the ground. Some of you might feel your footprints towards the ceiling, or you might feel the whole length of your legs resting on the ground. And we've just maybe got another time for another few breaths. So in this last time, see if you can let your awareness be expansive, sensing your breath, your body, the ground, the air. Be aware of the beautiful sunlight. Also the things that arise within us, the thoughts, the feelings. Just allowing both our inner and the outer world to be present in all their manifestations. So I'm going to ring my singing bowl 3 times. You don't need to do anything until the end of that. And even at that point, you could carry on lying still. So I'm going to unmute everyone now. Oh yes, you are. I think you're unmuted now. Sounds very quiet.
Shall we say something?
Oh yes, no, you're there. I thought it was very quiet. Thank you, everyone. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so,
How do we find this on YouTube?
oh well, I have to put it on YouTube. Let me just turn off the recording. So I will put it on YouTube, and